Good evening, everyone. I'm Byron Brown. We have continuing coverage of the city's ongoing water crisis happening right now. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves and FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell are holding a press conference on the situation. Let's listen in.
The effort it's taken to pass out that many bottles of water in a city of 151,000 people, I'm certainly proud of the efforts of those that are engaged and involved. And so I want to certainly thank the folks here at MEMA for coordinating that, who have managed this incredible logistical operation. The sites will be open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. as long as necessary. If you have questions or you need help accessing these resources, and we've had several hundred people over the last 24 hours reach out to this number, but as a reminder, MEMA's call center is open at 1-833-591-6362. I'll say that again, 1-833-591-6362. This call center is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 7 days a week. Together, we have built a strong coalition to respond to the crisis. I'm incredibly appreciative of all the folks who are working together to help those in need. I am truly proud of how individuals in the public and in the private sector have stepped up to help Jackson in its time of crisis. From local churches, from community organizations to nonprofits and charities, the character of Mississippians continues to shine through in all the donation drives, the water deliveries, and their prayers. Your generosity and commitment to serving this community will never be forgotten. On behalf of all Jacksonians, I want to simply say thank you. Furthermore, I am extremely thankful for the support we have received from our federal partners on this issue. I want to personally thank FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell, with whom I told you the other day that I spoke at length before the President very quickly signed our declaration. I also want to thank the Senior Advisor and Infrastructure Coordinator, Mitch Landrew, who was with us earlier today at OB Curtis, and for his help and his willingness to help us fix Jackson's water problems. FEMA's support will play a foundational role in our state's capacity to respond effectively to this unprecedented crisis. Recognition of this emergency on the national level will positively impact our ability to bring relief to the city and to the citizens of Jackson. Our coalition is strong. Officials will continue to work together to provide the people of Jackson with an effectively coordinated response. Our core goal is solving this problem and ensuring that the people of Jackson have running water again. This afternoon, we did have the chance to be back at OB Curtis Water Treatment Plant and to see firsthand some of the issues that the plant is facing. You've heard me sum it up over the last several days. We had a really good day the first couple of days. We had a difficult day yesterday. Today was a little bit better. We had a good day today. We've got more work to do, but again, we're going to continue to work every single day, day and night, to get this resolved. I want to once again take this opportunity to thank the hard-working men and women at the facility, at OB Curtis, as well as their colleagues at Fuel, for their noble efforts to keep the plant working amidst tremendous pressures. I want you to know that their efforts are noted, and we personally had the opportunity to say thank you to them as we were there earlier today. Furthermore, I want to commit that transparency will remain one of our highest priorities throughout the duration of this crisis. I want the public to know what the state is finding at Jackson's water plant and where we are in addressing the ongoing issues. That's why, as I've said previously, we'll be releasing daily incident command briefs showcasing this information. We'll continue to put out additional updates as quickly as possible. With that, I'd like to once again thank our federal partners for their support throughout this crisis and turn it over to FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell. Deanna?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I would just like to thank Governor Reeves for giving me the opportunity to join him today and getting a first-hand look at some of the issues that are being experienced at the water facility. And I'd like to thank the White House Infrastructure Coordinator, Mitch Landrieu, and Caitlin Durkovich from the National Security Council, both from the White House, who joined me today, and just say that this is a true testament of President Biden's commitment to make sure that we are bringing what we need to help Jackson, Mississippi with this immediate crisis. President Biden did swiftly approve the disaster declaration, which is going to give us a lot of resources and flexibility to make sure that we are being able to take care of the immediate crisis. Our top priority today and tomorrow and in the very near future is to make sure that we are getting help to those who need it most. Today, my goal was to make sure that I spoke firsthand with our federal partners who have been here on the ground from EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as the plant and the mayor, to understand what the needs were. I've had an opportunity to speak with the governor and his staff to continue that conversation to better understand what the challenges are and what we can do to help with those. I spoke with my team on the ground, my FEMA team, as well as EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers, and we had a good conversation about the things that need to happen today to support the immediate needs, as well as what needs to happen in the future. And then I had an opportunity to tour personally and see firsthand the challenges that the water treatment facility are facing. And so now that we have a better understanding of what those challenges are, we can take additional action to support as needed. But what I will tell you is what I saw here today was one team of the federal, state, and local government working together to make sure we are addressing these needs. FEMA's mission at this time is to support our state and our local partners to help meet these immediate needs for the residents of Jackson, Mississippi. And specifically, what we want to do is make sure that they have safe drinking water so that we will continue to support those efforts of the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency as they bring in bottled water to these impacted residents. In the short term, we are also here to help with technical assistance and support the efforts to restore water pressure so people can turn on their water faucets or flush their toilets. We will continue to work closely with the state's emergency management team to further understand the current needs, as well as identify what the potential future needs are going to be and what we can do to help fill those gaps. But ultimately, what I would say is FEMA's biggest value add to this situation is our ability to coordinate all disaster relief efforts and to ensure that the right federal partners are here with us with the right expertise to talk about the long-term solution. In that spirit, again, we are working with our partners at the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers, who are providing tremendous assistance and incredible contributions to this mission. But we must also recognize that the government cannot do this alone, which is why we'll be working alongside our community faith-based leaders, as well as our volunteer organizations, and partnering with them to make sure that Jackson residents have the help that they need and that they deserve. Marcus Coleman, who is our director for the faith-based and community partnerships, he is already here on the ground. He's coordinating closely with these organizations to help meet the critical needs of the people that have been impacted by this crisis. And we will continue to work alongside the state and the city to work with critical partners like New Hope Baptist Church, the Jackson Urban League, Catholic Charities, and so many others that are already providing water, hope, and healing. This is a really complex situation, but I am confident that together and with the team that I was able to talk with today, that we are going to be able to solve these complex issues. And to the people of Jackson, I would like to say that the Biden administration is here with you. We are here with you today, and we will be here with you until the job is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mississippi Emergency Management Agency Executive Director Stephen McCraney. Mac?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor. Just want to update on a couple of things. I think most of what I was probably going to cover has been already said, but the Governor talked about it. 2.8 million bottles of water in less than 24 hours. That's an immense lift. I can't tell you about the citizen soldiers and the airmen out there that are doing that. Thank you for the National Guard. They make me proud to have been a previous member doing that. We're on average to receive 71 trucks came in yesterday, and I'm on an average to probably receive another 36 trucks. They told me don't say that number. 36 trucks tomorrow. So we're continuing and looking at what the need is and what, but I can't. It's not just MEMA doing it. So the volunteer groups have been out there. So there's kind of a trifecta. There's those folks that are taking care of their neighbor, the shut-ins. Those folks that are going and just buying 2 cases of water or getting a case of water or 2 and delivering them to those shut-ins. Can't take credit for that, but the coordination thereof, the 1-800 that we have calling in, they identify a need. We give them off to one of those organizations. We pass that through. And then everybody that's wanting to donate water all across the country, we're getting phone calls from corporations, from good individuals, Greenville, Mississippi, others that are calling and say, hey, look, we've got some. We're going to deliver you a truckload on Saturday. We put them in the hands, and we coordinate that with a faith-based organization, UMCOR and others, like the administrator talked about. And we, right on time, they say, hold it for a day or 2 and then deliver it because they'll need it at that time because we can't overwhelm the sites. But it is a partnership. It is the state. It is the locals. It's the federal, the reach out, and those faith-based communities, what they're doing is tremendous. To see the drive they have is they always come through, and they always take care of those that need it. So we want to thank them a lot. The non-potable water pickup is a little bit slower than expected. I'm hoping that's because some of our pressure has increased a little bit, but not all the way where we want it. We've had some great PSI numbers coming out of the plant. I'm going to leave that for Jim. We talked about that number. Please continue to call it, and that is your one call. You call that 1-800 number that we have listed out there for you, and we're going to deliver the things that you asked for. We're going to put you in contact with the person that can take care of your needs out there as we go through this. We've reached out through EMAC, the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, and we've got sister states that have qualified personnel in those positions in which we've identified that we need to help those operators that are at the plant. They're doing a great job. We just need more of them. And so Florida is on that list, as well as Louisiana and others, and we've lined up. We've got California and a few other states to the National Water Companies Association, as well as the Rural Water Association. We're leaving no stone unturned, so to speak, and this continues to be a family of operators in a business in which they are very good at going and helping others do and make repairs after emergencies, disasters that happen, whether it's ice storms and others. So we're definitely leveraging those that are willing to come, and they are. There's a lot of them willing to come, so we want to keep that relationship going and keep that in for the state. One of the last things I want to talk about is foot traffic around the sites. I know there's a lot of people that want to come and watch and see a very good machine that's working out there at those mega sites. But we have heavy equipment out there, so we've had a few instances where we're getting close, kids and others. Just please stay in the cars, follow the directions of those folks that are giving you directions, and that way we can make sure that we get the product to you that you need and get you out of there very safely, and we definitely want to keep that going. So over the next few days, you're going to continue to see us in those locations. We will definitely be evaluating how to expand some of those locations, as well as we're going to have to move from some, because some people start going back to school. We have some school locations that we're going to have to adjust for. We already know it. We're already getting planning together. We did that today with the Hinds County Emergency Management Agency as well as the city. So looking at forecasting on, we know we're going to have to morph. So we'll take that into consideration. We'll put that out and make sure that we get that done. They talked about some of the agencies that have been here since the very beginning. I want to talk about the city. The city's been here since the very beginning as well. Had some great conversations with the mayor as we were starting to look at this original problem and his staff. I can't thank them enough for the things that they provided for us. The EPA, you've talked about, Corps of Engineers, talking with them right out of Vicksburg. They're right here with us in the state, so they've come up with some great ideas and some proposals. So I think that what you're seeing here is team FEMA, as I like to call it, because when the federal government comes in, I kind of speak with one word, and that is we become a team, we become one. I don't see MEMA employees. I just see emergency managers doing what we do in a coordinated effort across. And one of these days I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read y'all the 5-page list I have of state organizations, county organizations, and all those. It'll be like a graduation in high school, because I'm going to tell you every one of these that we pulled in as a partner to do this mission, and we can't do it without them. So I'm going to tap, and then we've got horns playing, we've got everything else in the orchestra. It takes all instruments, and I can't be proud enough to be the director for the governor that's actually in a position where we have great federal partners, great state partners, great county partners, and the locals. One of the few times I see it's all coming together, and we're all laced, we're all pointed at the end of the rainbow. So, Governor, that's all I've got, and I'll yield the rest of my time to the next candidate.
Thank you, Mac, and thank you for you and your entire team's effort. As I have said many times from this podium and many others around the state of Mississippi, we have the best emergency. Has been with us from the get-go on this particular project and many others that we've worked with the State Department of Health over many years. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jim to give you an update of what's going on at OB Curtis.
Thank you, Governor. Again, just to give a little update on the plants and where we are with production of water in the city of Jackson right now. You know, yesterday, those very dedicated operators at the OB Curtis plant and the fuel plant continue to do a great job at increasing pressure in the state. In the city. I think we've seen the results of that with increased pressures around a good part of the city. They've also been able to increase the amount of overhead storage capacity in those tanks that we've talked about before, which are very, very important to us, making sure that we not only get pressure, but we also maintain a margin so that if there are more difficulties at the plant, it will help offset those particular difficulties. Today, we had one of those difficulties that was a chemical imbalance about 2 o'clock this afternoon that slowed down the production of water out of the OB Curtis facility. It was quickly addressed by the operators and brought back online. This morning, we were at about 85 pounds of pressure, and let me note that 85 pounds is one of the highest ratings that we've had since we've been at the plant. But right now, due to this chemical imbalance and the suspension of operations on the conventional side of the plant for 2 to 3 hours, we ended up with pressures right now running about 77.2 psi. Again, remember Monday, 78 was the number we were so happy we got up to. So I don't think that residents and folks in the city will see much difference in their pressures, but there may be some fluctuations as you get further away from those tanks this evening. Our state teams and our partners at OB Curtis are still working with the city to help improve those operations. And I think, as we've heard from our federal partners and from MAC, we've brought a lot of folks to the site. We have not only our federal partners from EPA and from the Corps of Engineers who've been great in helping us with more detailed assessments to help us find additional items that need to be addressed, but also the partners that we've had from state government. We've had, of course, the health department there in MEMA. DEQ was on site with us today. Those current issues that we've continued to find and locate on the plant, we have repairs that are ongoing for many of them. But as we said, there are a number of issues at this plant, and we have continued work that will need to occur. Also wanted to let you know that The assessment teams, as they complete their more detailed assessments, continue to not only identify additional issues, but additional resources that have to be located and brought to the sites. We do have plans that are underway to continue to address those issues and to bring those needed resources to the site. MEMA and FEMA and the others have been excellent partners in trying to make sure we have all the resources necessary to continue to make those improvements at both plants. Also want to let you know that last evening we confirmed a minor leak from an ammonia tank at the plant, at the O.B. Curtis plant. Teams came in to assess the leak and have cordoned off an area about 60 feet. All of that is within the plant, and it's not within an area of the plant that we routinely operate in, but it is close to some of our operations that are on the far side. The Department of Environmental Quality, emergency response teams came in this morning with their contractors to help make sure that that leak is properly abated, and they'll be working to make sure that the leak is stopped and the necessary repairs are made. You may recall one of the issues that I briefed out earlier on was the amount of sediment that were in the basins. Those problems continue to increase in part of the plant, but there's some good news today. Part of it was finding a place for all this sedimentation to go. We have reached out to a number of cities and surrounding areas that are willing to take some of this additional sediment into their wastewater plants or into some landfill operations. So we're very, very hopeful that we can begin operations to remove that sediment very, very quickly. Again, let me appreciate the continued dedication of these hard-working operators that we have here. As the governor said, there's not enough of them. But the good news is help is on the way. We did see the Florida advance team came in today. They've now been in the plant to see exactly what additional resources their team that will be coming in this weekend to assist our operators and maintenance staff will be on site this weekend. Right before I left to come here, the Louisiana team had just arrived. So I believe those Louisiana teams are probably going through orientation right now to be prepared for assisting us as well. Just to give you an idea of about what our expected millions of gallons per day, remember we talked about the MGD for each plant, we do anticipate that O.B. Curtis will put out about 29.4 million gallons today. And that fuel, remember it's the one that is rated for about 20 million gallons a day, stepped up to help during the time where the pressure was less at O.B. Curtis and has supplied 21 million gallons today. It looks like about what their number will be. And Governor, that's the status from the plant. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate your and your team's hard work. I know it's been a challenging 4 days and 4 nights working through this particular facility, as we've talked about. Getting the plant better operational so as to push out more pressure and to push out more gallons of water is critical in the short run, because we've got to make sure that we address the quantity of water issue that you've heard me talk about. One of the fears that we had on Monday was that the plant would shut down for an extended period of time and there would be an inability to flush throughout the entire city, an inability to provide water for fire throughout the entire city. That's why we went to work and initially secured water in the event that the plant did go down completely. For fire protection was our first priority and the first thing that we did. But what we're seeing now is that while there are certainly fluctuations in water pressure throughout the city, and certainly on the quality of water side, it is not back to where it needs to be. You still need to boil your water if you're going to drink it. But on the quantity of water side, we have seen a number of days of progress, of positives, nowhere near where we need to be. But again, we've got to get to, if you get to a situation in which you have the adequate pressure where we're pumping out water and the tanks are filling up, Well, when that occurs, if you have a setback at the facility, you can take a line down for an hour or 2 or 3 to fix whatever setback that is, and still have the same amount of pressure because you have water in those tanks. Those tanks have not been full to the extent that they need to be in a long, long time. I personally, when we were in the operations room earlier at OB Curtis, had the opportunity to look at the screens, and we're certainly seeing improvement there. A long way from where we need to be, but we are seeing improvement. And if we can get this line back on that Jim was talking about sometime soon, I think we'll be hopefully continue to see progress through the night if nothing else goes wrong overnight, which we have found in this particular situation over the last 30 days. If it can go wrong, it probably will. But hopefully if we can get through the next 12 to 24 hours with positive news, we can continue to see those tanks filling throughout the city. So with that, I'll open the floor to questions. Courtney?
Governor, earlier today, the mayor gave a forewarning, if you will, that he was concerned that as the PSI increased at the plant, that it could then have a domino effect of ruptured pipes throughout the city. What, if anything, is being done to mitigate that potential domino effect? Or is it inevitable with the condition of the pipes in the city?
Yeah, I think the mayor's concern is certainly valid. The mayor spends a lot of time talking about the bigger long-term issues with the system, and I understand, having been in charge of the system for a long time, why he would do that. We're really focused on the short term. We're really focused on getting the plant at OB Curtis up and operating at a level where we can produce adequate quantities of water so that we can ultimately not only adequate quantities of water, but adequate quantities of water that actually are pushing out clean water into the system so that we can actually have clean drinking water going through the system. If in fact the pressures increase, because I think it's fair to say that the pressure has been woefully lacking for a long time. It's one of the, I don't want to speak for the Department of Health, but that's one of the reasons that the boil water notice has been in effect for 34 days now. There is no doubt that there is the potential for there to be leaks. We know that there are leaks in the system. There are potential for there to be large leaks that will have to be addressed. And what I can tell you is we just had a conversation upstairs with the administrator and our team that we are looking at ways to utilize EMAC and other systems to get individuals here in the event that occurs, because that happens in every water system in America. It's just, regardless of whether or not you have pipes that are 100 years old or pipes that are 50 years old, there are times when leaks occur. The key is you find the leak and you fix it, and you do it quickly. And again, that's while that is certainly an issue and one that I think is valid, what we're talking about there is an issue that affects hundreds of residents or maybe 1,000 residents, not issues like we're seeing at the plant that affects 151,000 residents potentially, or the entire city. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, do you know if Jackson residents still have to pay water bills even though they can't drink it?
What I would say is there is a significant challenge at the city of Jackson of even properly billing the people who receive the water when there actually is water in the tanks that is clean. And so in the long term, again, the long term, one of the major long-term issues is having a billing system in place such that every single resident and every single business that receives water also receives a bill. And then also ensuring that if you receive water and you receive a bill, that you actually have to pay that bill. And if you don't pay that bill, there has to be consequences. I think that's certainly a long-term issue that has to be dealt with. But in the short term, our entire focus is on making sure that we get an adequate amount of water being pumped out of both Fuel and OB Curtis so as to ultimately get back to a situation where the water that we're sending, that when you turn on your faucet, that you're actually getting clean water through it. And that's really what we're focused on. Yes.
So if the tanks are filling up with water that's not clean, how long after the plant is producing clean water will the tanks be full of clean water?
I'm gonna let Jim answer that question. But just as a reminder, we have been very transparent that the water is not does not need to be is not drinkable at this time. Please boil your water. Let me say that again. The water is not drinkable at this time. Please boil your water. But it is incredibly important that while that is certainly a challenge that the city has been facing now for 33 or 34 days, one of the risks that we're trying to avoid is having no water in the tanks, having no water such that no one in the city has the ability to flush their toilets, et cetera. Now, there have certainly been water pressure issues over the last couple of days in certain areas of the city, and primarily for those homes and businesses that are a long way from where the actual tanks are. But by and large, over the last 3 or 4 days, we've been able to avoid the massive lack of any water in the system, and hopefully we can avoid that in the future. But in terms of timing, I'm going to let Jim speak to that.
Yeah, Governor, thank you. It's very hard to predict exactly how long it will take. It depends a good bit on pressures that are in the system and how much is in those overhead storage that have to move through the system. As you remember, right before the state came and activated to come into the plant, we did have quite a bit of water that was already in that system that was still processing through the system. As we increase those pressures, I think we'll see as we increase pressure, as well as today, I guess it's another win I should mention, we were able to get the chlorine levels up at the plant today, which was a real plus for us as well, which will help as we move more chlorinated water through the system so that we can get those bacteria and things that need to be addressed in the system. Know that the UV system, the ultraviolet system that's part of the plant at OB Curtis is functioning as designed. So it does a great job of making sure those bacteria are zapped before they get into the pipe. But we still do have quite a bit of that is in the system right now. Timelines, I hope to be able to update you soon with a better timeline. But with as many issues as we have in the plant, really a lot of my focus is right now is to get those pressures and get that margin, if you will, water overhead, so that we can continue to conduct all of the different maintenance activities that have to occur to fix different parts of the plant. So I described to the team a lot of times it's like fixing the airplane while you're still flying. You have to be very careful how you fix it so that you stay flying. Same thing as we're trying to produce water. All that water demand needs to continue to occur. And every time we have to do some maintenance, then we have to offset some of that we have to take something down, which is not going to be making water while we're doing that. So again, as the more we can increase that, I think the better we'll be. Also, just go ahead and know we will have some good days at these plants, and we will continue still to have some bad days. There is a lot of things that have to still be fixed.
I just want to follow that up with, as Jim said, it's very difficult to give you a specific timeline, but here's what I can assure you of. The State Department of Health has a process wherein they test the water. As you heard me say on Monday and again on Tuesday, it is in essence for the State Department of Health to say that there is clean water in the system, they have to have 2 consecutive days of taking 120 samples at different locations in which 100% of those 120 samples are clean. I can commit to you today that we will continue to advise Jacksonians to boil their water until we actually get to the point where we have 2 consecutive days where there are 120 samples that come back clean. Until that point, we are going to be transparent, we're going to be honest, and we're going to tell the people here in the city to boil their water. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I had a follow-up to the fixes at the plant. We'd learned earlier in the week that there were some pumps that were broken, and then we had this rental pump that was brought in. Can you explain the job of those pumps and where we stand with the broken ones, the rental pump, where that all stands now?
Certainly. No, thank you. So the raw water pumps, the pumps that bring the raw water from the Barnett Reservoir into the plant to be treated and processed, we have 2 of those pumps that needed to be repaired. One had a catastrophic failure where the actual shaft in the pump has been broken. Unfortunately, these are very old pumps. There's no off-the-shelf models to put something new in place. In fact, the diameters that were used back in the 60s for those shafts are not what is used currently. So they're having to actually be machined out of raw material and turned in. So we expect to have those pumps back on site. The current estimate is September the 9th. We're hopeful that will work out the way that it needs to. In the interim, we did get a temporary pump that has been put in place so that we can generate about another 4 million gallons a day through that raw water intake pump, and it is in place and operating as designed.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain further about the chemical fluctuations that you mentioned earlier?
Chemical fluctuation?
So I take it you're talking about the issue today?
Yeah, the chemical fluctuations that keep occurring and you have to stop operations.
Yeah, so as you know, there is a structure that's out in the reservoir that detects what the pH level and the turbidity levels are of the water in the reservoir and sends information to the operators to say the water's coming out of the reservoir with this pH and this turbidity. That particular structure is currently not operating. So these well-trained, dedicated operators that we have in plant really don't get that advanced notice of what's coming in. They have to react to what's also been complicated by the floodwaters and all the additional rainwater that changes the pH by having those additional waters in play. And I think, just being able to properly assess that pH and get the chemicals, the disinfection chemicals, to react is taking longer today than what it has been in the last few days.
When do you expect to be able to get that kind of screen?
Well, like I said, there are a lot of opportunities at this particular plant. We had folks that were out there assessing as part of our assessment team to see what can be done in that structure. We also have looked at some alternatives to do some manual work to adjust that pH and give, again, those operators a little bit of a read ahead on what might be happening out there. But work continues right now with contractors to try to address that.
Okay, so I've got to get the administrator back home, so I'm going to be able to take one more question. Yes.
What can the emergency funds from both the state and federal emergency declaration be used for specifically, and how long will they be available?
Well, I do know that the declaration that the president signed was for 90 days, but I'm going to let Mac talk about some of the specifics on funding.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different buckets and a lot of different things for funding. If you get an emergency measures declaration, it's emergency measures. We're not talking about a major declaration where we're doing public assistance projects, where we've got time to do assessments, find out what roads are wiped and washed out and of that nature. But what we have here is an opportunity with direct federal assistance. We have these experts at the federal level and the coffers that they bring to the table for us for this median time. The state has a disaster trust fund, which we use to match on any disaster as well. We're also looking at mitigation dollars that we can look at down the road once we get this plant up and running, so we can make it more resilient to weather. We've got cold weather coming. We want to make sure that we're prepared for that part of the season as well, where we see breaks in the lines, and every day grants from other agencies, the EPA, the Corps of Engineers. They're working on projects and whatnot. So it's kind of like lacing up your shoes. You start at the bottom and you just keep lacing this program that can do one thing, another program on top of the other, and we're going to stack them on top of each other as we get to the top, and then tie it in a nice bow, and then we're done. So that's the way I kind of explain it.
Dollars, if you don't mind. Can you speak to, in the past, we've seen FEMA come into the state of Mississippi, to Jackson with dollars. There's been plenty of criticism on how that money was spent. So what's your understanding on your role? Once you get on the plane and go back to D.C., those dollars will be spent adequately here to fix the actual issue so that the drinking water is not only up to the right pressure, but the quality for residents here.
Yeah, so the emergency declaration that we have in place right now is specific to Jackson, Mississippi. The dollars can only be used for this specific instance. The funding is available to support the temporary measures to reestablish the pressure, but also to sustain that pressure while they're looking at the more permanent repairs. What the emergency declaration does not do is support the permanent repairs for this facility. It's only for those temporary measures to support the emergency work. It also supports our ability to reimburse for the contracted water that is coming in to make sure that everyone in Jackson, Mississippi has clean water to drink. And it will also support some of the other additional staffing measures that are coming in to help keep that plant running in this temporary time frame. As the governor mentioned, the emergency declaration is for 90 days, but we'll continue to assess with the governor's staff and the mayor to see how much more might be needed, and then we can reevaluate if we need to extend that.
Is the federal money being used for the rental pump, or is that money coming from the state? Who's paying to rent that pump specifically?
In the end, we'll do a reimbursement process, but straight up front, it's coming out of the coffers of the state of Mississippi, and that's why the legislature and under the governor's leadership, we have a disaster trust fund in the state. So we use that to match that 75-25 match with the federal assistance when it comes in, because the state has a buy-in as well. So that's kind of how that works.
Governor, just one last question. The mayor of Jackson is noticeably missing from this press conference. Can you explain why he's not here and your relationship with him?
Sure. What I would tell you is the mayor was with us earlier today, touring O.B. Curtis, and we certainly appreciate him being there. And I know he had a press briefing earlier today as well in the city of Jackson with members of the traveling party that was here. And he also attended our press conference yesterday and spoke yesterday. And so what we are all focused on right now is the coordination and cooperation from local, state, and federal government to focus on what is most important. And what is most important is that we get the quantity of water up initially in the city of Jackson to ensure that the long-term or short-term risk of not being able to flush your toilet, not being able to provide fire service is mitigated, and also to deal with, once we get those pressures up, which we are headed in the right direction with respect to that, that we actually get the quality of the water to a level where we can actually get clean drinking water running through the pipes in Jackson. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. We've got to get the administrator out, but also I want to thank her for being here on the ground in Jackson, Mississippi today. As you know, the president signed the order less than 72 hours ago. And in fact, he signed the order within 12 hours or so of us even sending it to Washington. And so they've had very swift action. And for her to be here today certainly shows the level of a commitment that our federal partners at FEMA and quite frankly across the board, including the EPA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the assets that they bring to the table. We appreciate that. We made a decision on Monday that we were going to, that there was justified means for the state to take over the O.B. Curtis water facility. And we then started pulling together a broad coalition to make sure that we get water to the citizens of Jackson. It's not fair that the citizens are in the position that they're in today. I understand that. And we're doing everything in our power to get water restored from a quantity and a quality standpoint as quickly as humanly possible. So thank you all and have a great night.